Hello and welcome back to the Roundup by News of the Week, the show where I, Jake Whitwell, summarise and explain the news, helping you to stay informed. I know this week's episode is a little bit late. That's kind of my bad. I've had a really busy week with work and things and haven't been able to set the time down to actually get this recorded and edited in the way that I want it to look. So we're a day late. But that doesn't matter because this week on the Roundup we'll still go into all the important topics like the government's investment in defence, the Labour backbench rebellion over benefits reforms and the rejection of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Without further ado, we'll get on to the news on policy change, where the ID told up to 170 Labour MPs have got in a standoff with Starmer over personal independent benefits, or PIPs. Labour's proposed welfare cuts have caused controversy with its backbenchers because the reforms reduce the eligibility of the PIP payments. They also reduce the eligibility for the carers allowance. And that's led to concern and a bit of a bad sentiment on the Labour backbenches. It's not thought currently that the pressure is enough to force a U-turn like it has been on the idea of the winter fuel payments. But Labour MPs are reportedly deeply uncomfortable with the change, and some have already said they will vote against the government measures to implement the benefits cuts. Others explain their resistance isn't just for the proposed bill and proposed cuts itself. That they're against it just because they think it's going against vulnerable people and it's targeting those vulnerable people. Politically, 170 MPs doesn't seem like much compared to Labour's majority of 403. MPs, but they've got to work that their actual working majority is 165 MPs, I believe, and obviously 170 is more than 165, so they are at risk of this legislation not maybe going to plan, not going through, that amendments could be forced over this rebellion on the backbenches. Although that kind of depends on the stability and the context of the government, how well they've been perceived to be doing, and what their other more pressing changes are, and also where MPs' other priorities lie. So we'll see how this translates into changes to the benefit proposals as we go. Also, City AM noted 50,000 civil service jobs are at risk in Labour's June spending review. Okay, the civil service has grown by 130,000 in the last 8 years, with 12,000 of these coming in the last 12 months. There is a total of 500,000 people employed in the civil service, and reports have suggested that 10% of these will be cut. Okay, this is due to departments being asked to make spending cuts as a result of the tightness of Chancellor Rachel Reeves' spending rules. This ties in with other areas of government policy as well, like the push for new technology to be used in the civil service to make it more efficient. The Independent detailed the government have made major changes to apprenticeships. What are they? Well, in a nutshell, they've invested in more apprenticeship schemes, and they'll be funded by a levy. According to the government, the investment they've made will create 120,000 new apprenticeships before the next general election. 45,000 of these will be created and funded by the increase to the immigration skills charge, which is going up by a third. The new apprenticeship schemes will focus on industries like construction, engineering, and healthcare, and the Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said a skilled workforce is key to driving the economy forward. She also talked about the investment representing the government backing young people to invest in a shared and strong economic future. She cautioned that the responsibility is now on young people to take up these apprenticeships, with the move in general being praised by the Young Futures Foundation. Sarah Young, the Director of Policy there, has said that evidence has shown that these apprenticeship schemes can be effective, although in this country the data shows that the uptake of these apprenticeships among marginalised young people is actually declining. Reuters reported that Britain is set to spend an extra £2 billion on armed forces housing. The government is set to publish a strategic defence review next week, but I'm putting it here, or now this week because I'm late. The review will outline a 10-year plan for government of Britain's defences. The £1.5 billion will be spent on repairs and maintenance on military homes, from everything like fixing boilers to dealing with damp and mould. The Defence Secretary John Healey said that the government is taking decisive action to fix the dire state of military accommodation. That concludes the news I got on policy change. In foreign policy then, as we're moving on to that now, The Guardian noted the UK is preparing to sign a £1.6 billion deal with the Gulf states, which has reportedly caused dismay and arguments over the value-free nature of the deal. There aren't many details on the specifics of the deal yet. It's thought it could be over things like the auto industry and financial services. The government has said that the deal will increase bilateral trade by 16% and add an extra 8.6 billion pounds a year to the trading relationship between the UK and the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council states. Human rights groups, trade unions, and campaigners have all raised concerns over the deal. Human rights groups said the UK should not be making a trade agreement with a nation that doesn't have legal commitments on human rights. The TUC's General Secretary has said the UK should not sign a deal which could lead to the abuse of human rights, workers' rights, and international law. The Independent noted the UK is set to spend £1.5 billion on weapons factories. After the housing things we covered just a minute ago, it was announced yesterday, on Sunday, that the government went further. The Defence Secretary John Healey said that the UK has taken hard-fought lessons from Putin's illegal invasion in Ukraine, that a military is only as strong as the industry which sits behind it. Therefore, 6 new factories will be developed to make things like munitions and propellants and explosives. Up to 7,000 long-range weapons are thought to be being made in these 6 new factories. According to the government, it will make the UK's defence industry an engine for economic growth and boost jobs all over the country. In fact, up to 1,800 jobs will be created by the move. This also comes after other reports where the UK is preparing to purchase nuclear-equipped fighter jets, which would fire nuclear but less powerful than conventional nuclear weapons, and other reports of cyber experts being taken onto the front lines, or that being a discussed change. Basically, all of this is designed to advance the position of an always-on, war-ready UK military. And that concluded the news I got on foreign policy. Moving on to global news then, I'm going to break this down into a few categories to make it easier for me and hopefully for you. Firstly, in news on Ukraine, the Times detailed the UK, the US, and its allies have said that they have lifted a range restrictions on weapons going into Ukraine. After Russia initiated the heaviest drone strikes of the invasion, Germany's Chancellor Merz said Ukraine would be able to defend itself on long-range fire. It won't be restricted from limits by the US, the UK, France, or Germany. Zelensky said there were 900 drones and missiles launched over 3 nights, saying Russia was playing with diplomacy and that it deserves full-scale pressure in retaliation. The Independent noted Trump has warned Putin he is playing with fire after the drone attack we just mentioned. Trump said things would be really, really bad for Russia if it weren't for him, and that therefore Putin is playing with fire. This was after Trump claimed that Putin had gone absolutely crazy and that he was needlessly killing civilians. The former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev responded threatening World War III. In news on Gaza, I think it's Hearts, Haaretz, detailed comments from the Israeli minister over the bombing of Sana airport, which destroyed the Houthis' last aircraft. Not only did he say the airport will continue to be damaged, he also said that anyone who attacks Israel or fires at Israel will pay a heavy price. This comes while Netanyahu said the Houthis were a symptom of the bigger problem of Iran, which was the power behind them. Both of these statements are echoed by the IDF, who said they will strike forcefully at anyone who threatens Israeli civilians at any distance. Sky News noted Hamas's chief has reportedly been eliminated, according to Netanyahu. Mohammed Sinwar, I think that's how I'm pronouncing that right, the brother of the former leader Yahya Sinwar, who was behind the October 7th attack, was killed, according to the Israeli leader. However, the Israeli military were not able to confirm this, and neither did Hamas. Sky News noted Palestinians were not flocked to aid centres, with lawyers calling for sanctions on Israel. The aid centres were backed by the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, which itself is backed by the USA UK and Israel. It's delivered 8,000 food boxes, or the equivalent of 462,000 meals, and that amounts to a fraction of what is needed according to aid agencies. This comes after crowds gathered in southern Gaza, where people went to receive aid. Those crowds broke after gunfire was heard. After this, 800 legal professionals, as well as the Supreme Court, judges in the UK, published an open letter calling for the UK to impose sanctions on Israel. BBC News detailed 26 have been killed after an Israeli tank fire near one of these aid centres, according to medics and journalists. A local journalist, Mohammed, I think it's Gharib, said that thousands of Palestinians gathered at the aid centre and were fired upon. Other journalists circulated videos of bodies and the wounded being transported in carts. As rescue teams couldn't get there, the Red Cross Field Hospital said 26 people died and 150 were injured. The Telegraph reported that Hamas has rejected a ceasefire deal backed by the USA. The terrorist group received the proposal from Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy to the region, which would have seen a 60-day ceasefire implemented and the process for prisoner exchanges started. The terrorist group offered to release 10 alive hostages and 18 dead ones. What wasn't so clear in the ceasefire deal was the withdrawal of troops from Gaza, which is apparently a sticking point for Hamas. What they did offer, though, was to release 10 alive hostages and 18 dead ones. Witkoff wrote on X saying that Hamas's response was unacceptable and that it takes the progression to a ceasefire backwards. One Israeli official said they considered Hamas's response an effective rejection. So we'll see how that develops. The Times noted the market rally lost steam after the uncertainty created by the ruling on Trump's tariffs. This week, the Manhattan-based Court of International Trade ruled that Trump's Liberation Day tariffs overstepped its authority in imposing duties on countries who had a trading surplus with the USA or were trading more to the USA than they bought from them. Initially, markets rallied after the decision, but then they sort of stemmed down and nothing and sort of leveled out after that. The Telegraph noted the USA has warned a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is imminent. The US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, said that it could be said that an invasion could be imminent, claiming Beijing is incredibly preparing to use force to change the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. He also said the US would reorientate towards deterring the aggression by communist China, and this comes after China reportedly illegally seized lands in the South China Sea, even though an international court ruled their claim has no merit. AFP noted 2 bridges collapsed in blasts where 7 died in Russia. The 2 bridges collapsed in Russia near Bryansk, a region bordering Ukraine, where a blast has caused the road to damage a railway line and which consequently derailed a passenger train. Authorities said 7 people died. A second rail bridge in the Kursk region was blown up hours later, which also derailed a freight train, killing the driver. Authorities did not say who was behind the explosion, but it's been reported that Putin was briefed throughout the night. Apparently, it would be classified as an act of terrorism by the local authorities, with lawmakers blaming Ukraine, calling it a terrorist enclave. And that concludes the news I got in global news. Moving on to stats and trends, then, The Guardian reported on the findings of a poll which found half of all Red Wall voters disapprove of Labour's handling of benefits. A poll by Merlin Strategy across 42 Labour seats that are traditionally Labour but were won by the Conservatives in 2019 found that 48% of voters had a somewhat or strongly negative opinions on Labour's handling of benefit policies. This was against the 25% that approved of Labour's handling of the policies on other areas of policy, including health, taxation, immigration, housing, the environment, defence, crime and foreign affairs. Labour only had the confidence over health and housing, with most of the others going to Reform UK. HuffPost detailed a poll has shown Nigel Farage is the voters' last choice to be Prime Minister. According to a YouGov poll, voters prefer Starmer, Ed Davey and Kemi Badenoch to sit in number 10 rather than Farage. Voters rank Starmer as the best candidate, or with 44% of respondents saying he is the best choice to be Prime Minister. Then it was, that's up from 8% from the 36% he had in January. The Guardian reported an international trial has found exercise is better than drugs after cancer treatment. A trial involving patients from the UK, the US, and France, and Canada, and Israel. So, from the UK, the US, France, Canada, and Israel found that structured exercise regimes after treatment can reduce the risk of dying, the disease returning, or a new cancer developing. Dr. Julie Growlow, the chief medical officer of ASCO, who was not involved in the study, said that the quality of the findings represented the highest level of evidence found, and that would lead to a shift in understanding the importance of encouraging physical activity after and before treatment, not during treatment. It was taken after the study was taken over 88. The study was taken over 889 colon cancer patients between 2009 and 2023. 90% had stage 3 cancer, and the patients were randomly assigned to take part in a structured exercise program. That concluded the news I got on stats and trends. In non-political news, BBC News detailed that Thames Water has been hit with the largest ever fine issued by Ofwat, the regulator. Thames Water has been fined £122.7 million following 2 investigations into wastewater operations and dividend payouts. 9% of Thames Water's turnover, or 104.5 million, has been levied for breaches of wastewater rules, which is 1% off of the 10% that Ofwat could have recommended. The fines will be paid by Thames Water and its shareholders, and they will not be passed off to customers, with the regulator highly critical of Thames Water's handling of wastewater, which has been described as having an unacceptable impact on the environment. Sky News covered the renationalisation of South Western Railway and how it started with a replacement bus. After coming under public ownership in the early hours of Sunday last week, its first journey was a rail replacement bus during engineering works, and there was not much more of any relevance in that article. Anyway, that's all the news I got this week, so thank you very much for watching and listening, even though it was a day late. Sometimes that's how it just goes with work. Anyway, if you like this episode, you thought it was useful, or maybe you thought it was entertaining, please like it, subscribe, and comment, because that helps me every week in making News of the Week and the Roundup, this show, better. Anyway, I'll see you next week. Bye.